Vocabulary in Context. If you learn how to guess the unfamiliar words in sentences, you will not have to read with your dictionary open all the time. There are certain strategies you can use to reach an approximate meaning of the unknown word from the context. So what is context? How does it work? Let's go to the next slide and learn about context and context clues. Context is an environment of words and phrases in a sentence, which helps you reason out the meaning of an unfamiliar word. There are some context clues. The word itself and its parts, like a root, a suffix, and a prefix, synonyms, antonyms, examples, and the general sense of a paragraph. Let's start with the word parts: the root, the prefix, and the suffix. They come into the English language from several other languages, but many of the oldest ones are Greek or Latin in origin. These word parts have a meaning of their own. Let's look at the example, the word undeniable. Let's see if we can figure out the meaning of this word by breaking it down into three parts. Well, the first part is the prefix, and its prefix un. And most of you know that this prefix has a negative meaning. Then we move on, and we probably recognize the word deny, which is the root in this word. And the word deny itself also has a negative meaning. So negative plus negative gives us a positive meaning. And the suffix able tells us that this is an adjective. So we have an adjective now with the positive meaning. Therefore, we can probably conclude that this word is an adjective and now it has a positive meaning. So something cannot be denied, something that is obvious or clear. Let's look at some general rules about word parts. All words must have at least one root. Words, however, can have more than one prefix or root or suffix. For example, the word headache has two roots, head and ache. The word unbelievably has one prefix, one root, and two suffixes. Words do not always have a prefix or a suffix. For example, head, book, or article the. The spelling of roots may change as they are combined with suffixes. For example, actor becomes actress with the suffix ess added, and it's spelled actress, not actoress. Some word parts have the same meaning. For example, three suffixes er, or, ist mean the same, a person who. For example, worker, doctor, realist. Prefixes and roots do not always carry the assumed meaning. Do not assume that suffix "ly" only means adverbs. Suffix "ly" can also make an adjective, like the word friendly. Some prefixes and suffixes can change the meaning of new words. For example, positive word legal becomes negative illegal because of the prefix "ill." And harmful, a negative word, becomes positive harmless after we changed the suffix "full" into less. The second context clue is synonyms. Let's look at the example. Many hunters and deer managers in our era have accepted the necessity of preserving does to effectively manage toward the common deer management goal of increasing buck body and antler size. The word does, what do you think it means? And it is pronounced as does, not does. Well, if you look at the sentence closely, you cannot really find any context clues. So it's hard to say what does is. Now let's look at the second example with the context clue. Many hunters and deer managers in our era have accepted the necessity of preserving does, female deer, to effectively manage toward the common deer management goal of increasing buck body and antler size. As you notice, we have some words in parentheses, female deer. The female deer in parentheses is a synonym clue for the unknown word does. So therefore, a doe is a female deer. Another kind of context is a word or words of opposite meaning, antonyms. As synonyms, antonyms are located somewhere near a word that is unfamiliar. If you find a word of opposite meaning and you recognize it, you can unlock the meaning of the unfamiliar word. For example, read the following sentence. My bird does not sing in confined spaces. What is confined? Do we have enough clues to figure out the meaning of this word? No, not really. But if we look at the second example, my bird does not sing in confined spaces, but he starts chirping in a wide open outdoors. Now we notice some context, like, but he starts chirping in a wide open outdoors. We have confined spaces and wide open outdoors. Are they antonyms or are they synonyms? How do we know? You're right. We'll look at the word but, which shows contrast. So confined and wide open are antonyms. Wide open is the antonym context clue for the word confined. Therefore, confined means not wide open or limited, not free. The fourth context clue is examples. Let's read the sentence. Peter the Great was a noteworthy emperor of Russia. What do you think noteworthy means? It's hard to say because we do not have context clues. Was he a bad emperor or was he a good emperor? Let's read the second sentence. Peter the Great was a noteworthy emperor of Russia for many things he did, such as establishing the Russian Navy, bringing European culture into the country, and building St. Petersburg. Such as gives a list of things that Peter the Great did. So, establishing the Russian Navy, bringing European culture into the country, and building St. Petersburg are some examples of good and valuable things he did. It is an example context clue for the word noteworthy. Therefore, we can conclude that noteworthy probably means outstanding and significant. Words that indicate examples are such as, like, including, for instance, for example. Okay, let's stop and review. So far, we've learned about context. Remember, context is an environment in which a word, an unknown word, is located. And context helps us to figure out the meaning of this unknown word. And you've learned about several types of context clues, such as word parts, suffixes, prefixes, and roots, synonyms, antonyms, and examples. The first three sentences is the best example of how three types of different context clues can help you figure out the meaning of the same word. Let's read the first sentence. As part of his probation, he is confined to his house and limited in the number of visitors he can have. I'm sure you remember the meaning of the word confined from the previous slides. However, I want you to pay attention to the context clue and figure out what type of context clue is used in this sentence. Once again, he is confined to his house and limited in a number of visitors he can have. If you said synonym, you're right. We have a synonym context clue. Confined and limited. Let's read the second sentence. As part of his probation, he is confined to his house. For example, he can't visit neighbors or friends, he can't mow his lawn, or he can't even go to his mailbox. And if you said, we have an example context clue, you are right. After the word, for example, we have a list of things that he is limited to do. And the third sentence, as part of his probation, he is confined to his house, but not limited to making phone calls. And if you said antonym, You are absolutely right. Confined, but not limited. Let's look at the fourth example. Those who are the victims of a miscarriage of justice may serve decades in prison or even be executed. Now, what context clue do we have in this sentence? A synonym? Not really. I don't see a synonym of the word miscarriage. An antonym? No. And no examples. We don't see words like, for example, such as, included, for instance. Could it be the word itself? Let's analyze the word miscarriage. Mis is a prefix. It's a negative prefix. Words like miscomprehend, mistake, misunderstand. Then we have carry, so something not carry. And age, this is the suffix that makes a noun. So we have a negative noun, so something not done by justice. Could it be a failure of justice? You're right. Miscarriage of justice means a failure of justice. So we just used the word parts context clue. We analyzed the word itself and we figure out its meaning. And the last context clue, general sense. When you come across an unfamiliar word, try to look in different places in the text for clues. These clues can be found before, within, or after the sentence. Okay, and the last context clue, general sense. When you come across an unfamiliar word, try to look in different places in the text for clues. These clues can be found before, within, or after the sentence with the unfamiliar word. It's called general sense of a paragraph. Let's look at the example. Seniors confined to a wheelchair may feel limited in their activity options, but there are many things they can do and participate in. Most public buildings are wheelchair accessible, and many areas have accessible transit options too. Seniors reliant on wheelchairs have several activity options available to them. Pay attention to the details in the story, like feel limited in their activities, wheelchair accessible, reliant on wheelchair. All this vocabulary makes the meaning of the word confined more clear. And we call this context clue, general sense. Do you know what a U is? No? Look for general sense clues while reading the following paragraph. Pay attention to special vocabulary and general sense clues. Sheep breeds are categorized according to their use in production. For example, ram or ewe breeds. Ram breeds tend to be those which have greater growth and a heavier carcass with more meat, high lean to fat ratio and high meat to bone ratio. Ewe breeds, on the other hand, are strong in maternal characteristics such as fertility, milking, and ability to care for the newborn lambs. Did you figure out what the word ewe is? Now pause, read it again if necessary, analyze the clues, and guess the meaning of the word ewe. Once you figure out the meaning, go to the next slide to see the clues and the answer. The last thing I want to mention today is definition. A definition is also considered a context clue. Let's look at the example. A miscarriage of justice can be defined in several different ways. Most commonly, it refers to the conviction of a person in a court of law for a crime of which he or she is later proven innocent. What comes after the word refers is the definition of a miscarriage of justice. Such type of context clue is pretty easy and can be identified by students very easily. There are some signal words to look for. For example, the verbs to be, defined as, means, the term, or a term in boldface or italics. These are some clues for a definition context clue.